It is overtime here again at Old Favorite Friday, talking about incredible beers, classic beers that we don't think get, I should say, enough love and attention. And this week, because we are in October, because of the pumpkin beer season, we're doing our first pumpkin beer of the year, and that is Elysian's Great Pumpkin. This is an imperial pumpkin ale. This is actually claims it was brewed first, I should say, in 2001. And on the website for Elysian, they say this was the first ever imperial pumpkin beer in the world. That's awesome. I love pumpkin beers. They're a style that I really enjoy. Not everyone, they can be done poorly, but I do like pumpkin beers, and I tend to gravitate towards the higher gravity pumpkin beers for my own personal preference. And one of the reasons is that you find with some of the higher alcohol beers, you get a little more body, a little more richness, which I think better mimics if you're trying to make a pumpkin pie kind of flavored beer. I think it better mimics that. I also think that with the higher ABV beers, we have a little bit often of a little more residual sugar. And while residual sugar is something that I think is overdone in too many beers, a lot of times when I'm trying beers, I say this is great, but it's a little too sweet. It's appropriate here, and I think that it does a really good job here. So talking about Elysian here and talking about pumpkin beers, you have to talk about the fact that this is not the only pumpkin beer they make. In fact, I had picked this beer up in the pumpkin pack. Night Owl, which is their regular pumpkin beer, which was made first. It was the first pumpkin beer they did, is also in this pack, along with a stout and also a cappuccino style beer. That's the one I haven't had yet. But Night Owl is really good. It easily could be featured on Old Favorite Friday, but I wanted to go with the one that I like the best, which is the Great Pumpkin here. So let's talk about this beer in particular. On the nose, you just got all that big spice box. You got allspice, cinnamon, nutmeg, clove, all those kind of aromas just wafting around. Really kind of perfect. That's what I'm looking for when I get this. I love pumpkin beers that really get aggressive on the spice character. And then when I taste a beer, I've got that little bit of residual sweetness. It's not over the top. It's well balanced, and it balances out kind of the bitterness of the spice. I'm not getting hop bitterness. I'm getting kind of a spice box bitterness that comes off of using a lot of spices in your beer, and which is really nice because that little bit of bitterness is balanced out by the sweetness. So there's a really nice interplay there. A great beer, in my opinion. Not for every style, but for most styles, you want a little bit of bitterness there to contrast the other flavors, and I think this does a really good job of doing that without getting to the point of being chalky. If you overuse spices in some ways, you can get chalky, and that's really kind of an austere, like unpleasant bitterness. It doesn't come in play here. Yeah, the mouth feels really nice. It's rich and fuller body without being cloying. You do get a little bit of that kind of slickness on your tongue, which I think is important. Once again, trying to mimic something like a pumpkin pie. I really like that mouthfeel that this beer has. And overall, it doesn't go too much in one direction. It's got the nice spice aspect to it. It tastes like they use real pumpkin in the beer. They claim to use real pumpkin in the beer. That doesn't surprise me because that should be something that's adding some of that body and that richness. Overall, it's really well made. Like I said, I love pumpkin beers. It's a great season. There are some ones out there that I kind of stay away from. Not my favorite, but I've been able to feature a lot of the ones on Old Favorite Friday that I think are really high quality. And the fact that you can go and you can pick this beer up, it's very widely available. So you can find these in grocery stores and things like that. We love beers at Old Favorite Friday that are really accessible because too often, beers are great, but they're just hyper local. And we love those beers too. But sometimes with these ubiquitous beers, like we forget how good they are because they're on those grocery store shelves. So you can pick this beer up, try the entire gamut. They do a great job with it. Talking about food pairings, which I always try to do here on Old Favorite Friday. Excuse me. It's kind of tricky, right? Because pumpkin beers are not beers that you say immediately. They're kind of they're so specific in their flavor profile. Maybe they don't pair with a lot of different things. One of the things I like to think about is what flavors. What are like squash and pumpkin? What dishes sometimes have those ingredients or utilize those ingredients? So look at things like risotto. You see like a butternut squash risotto or pumpkin risotto. So something that's big and rich like risotto could lend itself to this. Chili. I've done chili with pumpkin before. It works really good. The spice component of good chili could really play into all the spices in this. And then finally, roasted pork with like some roasted root vegetables. I mean, those are things that go really well together. The sweetness, the caramel, talking about this, like there's a hint of brown sugar in here. All those flavors play really, really well into pork. Pork goes well with those sweeter flavors. I'm a little sick, guys, if you can't tell. So hold on, let me take another drink before I die. But no, those flavors go really, really well with pork. So I think that would be, a couple different options to pair this beer with. Please let us know for Old Favorite Friday what you're drinking this week. Are you drinking any pumpkin beers, any Oktoberfest beers? If you guys have been watching this for a long enough time and you see a beer that we just haven't been able to feature, we'd love to let you to let us know what we should be featuring next week on Old Favorite Friday. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.